In so many ways, Ninja Gaiden 4 is exactly what I wanted it to be. It's a collaborative effort between Team Ninja and Platinum Games, two of my all-time favorite developers. It builds off the combat from Ninja Gaiden 2, which has the best action of the series in my eyes, and it comes packed with small touches that make it a bit more approachable without sacrificing the toughest-nails difficulty that longtime fans like me expect. But while I'd even go so far to say that this combat system is among the very best I've ever seen, Ninja Gaiden 4 stumbles in many other areas. From its bland new lead character, to its uninspired level design, to its predictable story that falls completely flat. The action is still so good that a lot of these shortcomings get deflected like bullets against Ryu Hayabusa's sword, but others slip through that defense and wound what is otherwise an incredible revival for the Master Ninja.
Oh no! Looks like you've been cut off!
Story has never been a selling point of the Ninja Gaiden series, so it didn't come as a surprise to me that Ninja Gaiden 4's plot was one of the weakest elements. It introduces us to our new protagonist, Yakumo, a skilled ninja of the Raven Clan, whose initial goal to kill a priestess of the Dark Dragon instead quickly turns into a mission to escort her to a handful of magic seals in an effort to really, for realsies, kill the Dark Dragon for good this time. What follows is an extremely predictable 10-hour campaign with attempts at big emotional moments that fall flat because the legwork to make you care about these characters is never done. There is some banter that happens between Yakumo, his handler, and the other members of his little Raven Clan squad, but it's never charming or endearing, and certainly never develops to a point where I ever got a real sense that these characters were actually close.
Watch your back. You're a wanted criminal now.
Yakumo primarily communicates with grunts, acknowledgements of the mission objectives,
Made it to the gate. The target area is close by.
and angry threats,
Stay out of my way.
and as a result just comes off as a lame edgelord most of the time.
Bring it on. Bring it. Let's dance.
You do get to play a couple of chapters as Ryu towards the end, and while these are a welcome reprieve, they also feel like a huge missed opportunity. His levels have him retracing Yakumo's steps, fighting through the same environments, mostly the same enemies, and the same bosses, but this time with fewer combat options, since Ryu only has access to one weapon, a far less interesting Gleam form to replace Yakumo's Blood Raven form, and just 4 returning Ninpo super attacks. Imagine Dante's missions from Devil May Cry 4, except he doesn't get any new weapons, his playstyle is almost exactly the same as Nero, and there's none of that cool Dante trash talk. I am willing to forgive an action game for a lot if the action itself is good. Unfortunately, Ninja Gaiden 4's combat isn't just good, it's phenomenal. It's incredibly fast, the enemies are intelligent and won't let you do the same thing over and over again, there's a great deal of flexibility that allows you to change up your approach to each fight, it looks slick as hell, and it has that trademark Team Ninja fluidity mixed in with the over-the-top craziness that Platinum Games is renowned for. It just checks every single box. The secret sauce here is enemy aggression. Enemies are absolutely ruthless in Ninja Gaiden 4. They don't politely wait for their turn as they attack you from off screen, hit you with unblockables, grab you if you try to turtle up, armor through your regular attacks, and overwhelm you with sheer numbers. It's a style of combat that is totally unique to this series, and that suffocating pressure from enemies is what makes every combat encounter such a thrilling fight for survival. All of that may sound brutal, but Yakumo's own toolset is extremely powerful as well. You have the iconic flying swallow technique that allows you to zip towards an enemy, potentially slicing off their head in just a single hit, the Izuna drop air combo that ends in a flying pile driver that will instantly kill most enemies in a single blow, the plethora of powerful unlockable attacks for each weapon, and most importantly, ultimate techniques that allow you to absorb essence from defeated enemies to charge up a flashy combo that is completely invulnerable, can hit multiple enemies, and does extremely high damage. None of this is new to Ninja Gaiden 4, and in fact is just a basic overview of what's always been great about the combat in this series. But it's important to talk about because my biggest concern coming into Ninja Gaiden 4 was that it would feel less like Ninja Gaiden and more like a Platinum Games game. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just not what I'd want out of a return I've been waiting 13 years for. Fortunately, that's not the case. This is a Ninja Gaiden game through and through, with a light touch of Platinum flavor to enhance it even further. That flavor mostly comes in the form of one big addition to the combat system, Yakumo's Blood Raven form. By holding down the left trigger, Yakumo will transform his weapon into a slower, more extravagant version with a completely new set of moves and the ability to break an enemy's guard or interrupt their super attacks. These attacks are sick as hell, and definitely bring to mind some of Bayonetta's Wicked Weave heavy attacks, especially the rapier that turns into a huge drill, or the staff that turns into a giant hammer. But more than just being cool to look at, they add a new dimension to combat that forces you to be reactive to how the enemies are dealing with your offense. If you go into autopilot and just spam light attacks, enemies will block your strike and deliver a damaging counter of their own. But if you notice that they're flashing white and shrugging off your attacks, you can hit them with a Blood Raven form attack to not only deal big damage, but also open them up for even more punishment after breaking their guard. Blood Raven form moves are tied to a meter that drains pretty quickly, adding an extra layer of resource management that I enjoyed. These blood-infused attacks are also generally pretty slow, which makes them a bit risky to try to interrupt a faster armored attack. So you need to decide whether to risk wasting your meter by preemptively using a blood attack to try and catch an armored move during its initial animation, whether to risk your health by trying to wait to react to one of their slower and more telegraphed armored moves, or whether to use the meter defensively instead and try to perfectly block otherwise unblockable attacks. Whatever the case, having multiple different options to deal with a challenging combat encounter is crucial in a game like this, and Ninja Gaiden 4 is stacked with options to play around with. One departure from previous games is that instead of individually upgrading your weapons and having each improvement come with new moves and increased power, this time around you must buy all of your upgrades a la carte. Universal upgrades that affect every weapon cost Ninja Coin, which is a currency gained primarily from completing side missions, optional purgatory challenges, and as a reward for just completing a chapter. Weapon-specific techniques, on the other hand, must be purchased with Weapon EXP, which is gained simply by fighting enemies. The better you perform, the more Weapon EXP you get. It's a great change, and I enjoyed always having something new to unlock the whole way through, even though I do think that Ninja Gaiden 4 is a little stingy with your starting set of upgrades. From the beginning of the game, you're not even able to absorb essence to instantly charge your ultimate technique. You can't quickly charge it after landing from a jump, or even charge it up to level 2. All of those techniques have to be purchased, along with staples like the aforementioned Flying Swallow and Izuna Drop. And that same currency is also used to purchase consumable items, leading to a brutal economy in the early going, especially if you didn't purchase the more expensive Deluxe Edition, which gifts players with a whopping 50,000 Ninja Coins right from the start. That's enough to buy virtually every starting upgrade and fill up your inventory. If you only have the Standard Edition, the first couple of hours can be pretty rough as you slowly build up the arsenal of techniques that bring Ninja Gaiden 4's combat to life. The final new combat wrinkle is the addition of a Berserk meter that fills up as you deal or take damage, as well as when you defeat delimbed enemies with obliteration techniques. When the Berserk meter is full, your charged up Blood Raven form attacks will trigger Bloodbath kills, which are basically cinematic one-hit kills. It's another fun element of resource management that gave me a way to satisfyingly clear a whole screen of tough enemies in just a few seconds, if I managed to survive long enough to be able to build up the meter. Platinum also injects a healthy dose of style and creative expression into the combat by giving Yakumo the ability to hot swap between his weapons with just the press of a button. So you can do cool things like launch an enemy in the air with the dual swords, hit them twice, switch to another weapon, hit them twice again, switch to a third weapon, max out that air combo, and then send them crashing down with an Izuna Drop. We're not talking Devil May Cry levels of potential for combo creativity, but there's still a lot of fancy stuff you can do between the many techniques that you unlock for each weapon, and there's even a training mode so you can practice optimizing your damage and stylish combos. Variety like this goes a long way for me in terms of making combat feel fresh and exciting throughout the entire campaign. I did my first playthrough of Ninja Gaiden 4 on hard, and while that was the sweet spot for me in terms of difficulty, it's worth noting that you can change the setting at any point, except in Master Ninja mode, which is a great feature for anyone struggling with its demanding challenges. Hero mode has been added as well, which allows you to enable auto block and auto dodge along with an auto assist that allows you to do damaging combos with just single button presses. It's not for me, but I appreciate its inclusion nonetheless as a way to let more people enjoy the spectacle and action of the Ninja Gaiden series. While the action is pristine and the combat arenas themselves have some great interactable elements that give you the freedom to zip around from point to point, cutting up enemies along the way, the actual level design is pretty uninspired. There are occasional splashes of interesting architecture across its futuristic version of Tokyo that's been twisted by the evil power of the Dark Dragon's husk, but far more often, you'll just be wandering around very bland rooftops, identical looking corridors, and boring city streets. It doesn't get much better once you're out of Tokyo either. You just trade those drab streets for foggy cliffsides, ugly sewers, and samey looking military bases. There are a couple of fun travel sequences that break up all the limb-liberating sword slashing, like Sonic-esque rail grinding sections, bits where you have to glide on wind currents to soar over a mountain range, and some sewer surfing. But these 3 interstitials are repeated throughout the entire campaign with little to no variation or evolution. As a result, they end up feeling more like filler than anything else. There's a new side quest system that allows you to gain some extra currency by completing optional tasks, like finding and defeating secret mini-bosses, capturing hidden collectible monsters called Gordies, or just simply defeating a certain number of enemies in a specific area. It's a nice addition that gives some extra incentive to be thorough and not just run past optional fights, even though the drab and exceptionally linear level design doesn't make it very exciting to actually explore. My favorite thing to find hidden in a level though are purgatory gates. These are optional challenge rooms with the cool twist of letting you decide how much health you want to attempt them with. The greater the health handicap, the greater the reward. These fights are by far the most intense and most fun challenges available, and I loved pushing myself to try to get through the hardest difficulty and then being handsomely rewarded for the effort. Bosses have never been a strong suit for the Ninja Gaiden series, but, funny enough, have always been a strength of Platinum Games. The mixture of the two seems to have gone about how you would expect, as the bosses in Ninja Gaiden 4 vary wildly in quality. There are a couple of truly great scraps against tough enemies with adrenaline-pumping soundtracks that brought to mind some of Metal Gear Rising's best fights.
Don't stand a chance.
Meanwhile, others are just underwhelming battles against giant monsters with too much health and some frustrating gimmicks. From bosses that obnoxiously teleport around a large arena whenever you get close, to giant fiends that spawn annoying fodder enemies to distract you from their own extremely dangerous attacks. After beating the campaign, you unlock the Master Ninja difficulty, the ability to replay any stage, boss, or unlocked Purgatory Gate as either Yakumo or Ryu, and most substantially, 18 combat trials that feature unique modifiers and even a few enemies that I never encountered in the main game. These combat trials might have you clearing waves of enemies without using your Bloodraven form, or cause your health to tick down continuously, or a trial might just prevent you from healing altogether. I haven't beaten all of these yet, but I am having a blast going through each one of them and look forward to challenging my friends to top my scores on the leaderboard. When it comes to combat, there are few games I'd consider to even be in the same ballpark as Ninja Gaiden 4. It is quite simply the most fun I've had with a 3D action game since Devil May Cry 5. Its disappointing story, bland level design, and uneven boss battles certainly put a damper on the package as a whole, but they haven't stopped me from continuously coming back for more all the same. Blemishes and all, this is the best pure action game since Hi-Fi Rush, and hopefully it doesn't take another 13 years for the next one.
Executive Reviews Editor Tom Marks here with Mitchell Saltzman, reviewer of Ninja Gaiden 4. You've surely seen Mitchell if you've watched basically any of our action game reviews in recent years. Devil May Cry 5, Wuchang Fallen Feathers, Black Myth Wukong, Doom the Dark Ages earlier this year, also Souls-like-y stuff with Elden Ring and that sort of thing, all over that space. But Mitchell, way back earlier this year, you told me in no uncertain terms that you would basically do anything. You would throw away any other review. You would clear your schedule as long as you could review Ninja Gaiden 4 this year. Where'd that come from? Why did you want to review this so bad?
It's just one of those things where Ninja Gaiden Black is one of my favorite games of all time. The Ninja Gaiden series I put up on a pedestal as having the best combat of any game series out there. The only one that I would consider even in contention would be Devil May Cry 5. And even then, it's just kind of a matter of what you're looking for. They're two very different styles of combat. And I've been waiting so long for Ninja Gaiden 4, and I just never thought that this game would actually come to pass. And Here it is. So that's why I was just so hungry to be able to review this game, and I'm so excited to be able to talk about it.
I think you kind of already said this, but Ninja Gaiden Black, that's your favorite?
Yeah, Ninja Gaiden Black, you know, they kind of all do, again, different things. Ninja Gaiden Black, I think, is the best overall package, even though I would say that I prefer the combat of Ninja Gaiden 2 a little bit better, just because it's a little more complete. I love the obliteration techniques. It just feels a little more smooth. I like the weapons in Ninja Gaiden 2 a little bit better, but I like the overall structure of how Ninja Gaiden Black is put together. I like the more open kind of levels, the way you kind of go back to previous areas and they're a little bit different, and just kind of the overall adventure, I think, of Ninja Gaiden Black.
Well, speaking of weighing the pros and cons, this was one of those reviews that I think can tend to fall into a tricky space where a game that is doing some things incredibly, unbelievably well, and then other things it really is dropping the ball on, right? How do you approach something like this and weigh those different things and kind of try to land on a final verdict and number?
Yeah, you know, it's tough because, you know, when you're writing a review, I never want to shy away from the bad. I always want to paint the picture of the game as it is and not fall into the trap of, man, I really like this game. I really want to give it this score. But I also need, like, I don't want to ignore the bad and only focus on the good, obviously. And yeah, it's a tough balance to find. I think I would have forgiven just if it was just the story, if it was just Yakumo not being a very great main character, if it was just, you know, a little bit of the level design issues, because a lot of that also carries over to the other Ninja Gaiden games. The other Ninja Gaiden games, the story's not great. Ryu, as much as I like him, as I think he's a cool character, he's not Dante. He's not very charismatic. He doesn't really have a lot to say. There's not a huge, interesting character arc for that character. But, you know, I still consider those games to be some of my favorite games of all time. I think where Ninja Gaiden really falls from the 9 to the 8 kind of category is the fact that, you know, there is such a missed opportunity with Ryu sections. It is like the whole fact of, like, he only has the one weapon. And while I thought I would be fine with that when I was doing the preview for it, just having those back-to-back missions of Ryu and just having them not changing at all, you get a little bit of progression in the form of a couple of different moves that you can unlock, but going from a nearly fully kitted out Yakumo to a Ryu that only has one weapon and a couple of ninpos, it's not really the same. It's not that elevated jump that I would want to have from coming back to this, you know, character that I love so much and a playstyle that I love so much.
And that's a not insignificant portion of the game, it sounds
right.
like.
Yeah, no, it's a fairly decent chunk for sure.
Ninja Gaiden coming back is coming at the same time where people are like, every action game is a parry game now. All the games are stamina based, all of them are parry based, and Ninja Gaiden super flies in the face of that. We saw that with 2 Black earlier this year from Will Berger as well, doing the review. So I want to know your take on this. Do you think that the parry game revolution has gone too far? Are you really happy to see a game like Ninja Gaiden coming back, or do you think these things can live in harmony?
So what I'll say is that Ninja Gaiden is still kind of a parry game. Like, there is a big parry aspect to Ninja Gaiden in terms of, like, you know, how to defend against enemies. Well, I think
but it's not Sekiro.
Right. Yeah, it's not, the whole combat system isn't based around the parry mechanic. What I would say is that I think that rather than parries, what I think the larger kind of trend is like a trend towards stamina based combat systems. You know, those are kind of like your Souls-likes. That's kind of what the action game genre has kind of morphed into. And, you know, the different takes on that kind of methodical style of combat versus what you had in the past, where you had games like God of War, Devil May Cry, God Hand, Ninja Gaiden, where it wasn't about methodical combat. It was about twitch reflexes. It was about stylish combos and, like, you know, creative freedom of how you wanted to express yourself through combat. And that, I think, is what we're kind of getting back to with games like Hi-Fi Rush, games like Devil May Cry 5, which has been a while. It's been a while since that came out at this point, and Ninja Gaiden coming back as well. So that style of game is one of my favorite genres of all time. So I am super excited that we're getting games like Ninja Gaiden 4 again, like that we're getting games like Hi-Fi Rush, and even games like Lost Soul Aside, which didn't really hit the same high marks that a game like Ninja Gaiden 4 or Hi-Fi Rush or any of those other examples did. But just the fact that we're getting back to that kind of character action style that kind of went away for a little while in favor of the Souls-like genre, it makes me very excited.
Okay, I'm going to throw a curveball at you for a final question. Just gut instinct, and this is a very cruel thing I'm going to ask. You only get Ninja Gaiden 5 or Devil May Cry 6. Ooh. Which one are you going with?
Oh, God dang, Tom. Why would you do this to me? Man, I hate you for asking me this question. I would probably say Devil May Cry is the one that I want right now, just because it's been longer since I've gotten to experience that, and I think
sure.
I think they can do some really cool things with the new one, so I'll say Devil May Cry.
Well, Mitchell, I thank you for humoring me with that very mean question. If you want more from Mitchell, his last review was 2XKO. We had a nice conversation at the end of that about fighting games and his tastes there. Also a huge fighting game buff. And if you want a different kind of side-scrolling beat-em-up action, we have a review of Absolem from Will Berger, who was also a huge Ninja Gaiden fan, did our review of Ninja Gaiden Ragebound and Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. So we have a bunch of action aficionados and action games for you to check out. And for everything else, stick with IGN.